Cambridge Muslim College, training the next generation of Muslim thinkers.
It is an enormous pleasure to be here for selfish reasons. Increasingly, given the work that I do, I attend and I participate, contribute to conferences that are all about technology and what technology does and what technology doesn't do and what can or cannot do, etc. Increasingly, I find a huge need to discuss the philosophical aspects. And that is not always the engineer in the room main interest. So thank you for indulging me in this pleasurable conversation about something that is going to be unashamedly philosophical. Now, the talk is mildly optimistic. But before we get to the mildly optimistic bit at the end of it, I'm afraid there will be some rather less optimistic stuff to go through. Now, for those of you who are philosophers, apologies, because some of the things will be quite trivial. And for those of you who are not philosophers, apologies, because some of the things will be rather obscure. In the middle, I hope that anyone else will be quite happy. Now, one thing that we have learned is that our vocabulary, religious vocabulary, has been hijacked for a long time. If you don't have chocolate in heaven, I ain't going. Well, they do have chocolate in heaven, so you can relax. And they even have Paradise Supreme in heaven. Indeed, you can even sin and still get chocolate. And even in hell, there is chocolate. And trust me, when I was working on this presentation, I was flying around, and the British Airways offered divinely chocolate cookies. I said, I knew it. I had to take a picture. I said, I'm going to show them. Look, I'm not inventing this. This is all over the place. No, more seriously, the vocabulary, or as we say in some more intellectual corners of the world, the discourse, which means what we talk about, the discourse about religious topics has been increasingly appropriated by a number of actors. It's been a long time. I mean, we've been doing this, we, humanity, for centuries. So it's not a new thing. But the new thing that is more recent is how the discourse on technology, namely how we talk about, discuss, consume implicitly technological stuff, has further hijacked this religious vocabulary, including hope. Now, because that is the tradition I come from, I used to be a Catholic. I'm from Rome, so you can hardly avoid starting as Catholic. That is the tradition I come from, but I don't think that it is a unique tradition, as in it doesn't speak to other faiths or perspectives. It's a very famous passage, not least because almost any wedding I go to, they have it. Because, of course, the whole thing is in terms of not so much charity, but it's translated as love and blah, blah, blah. Something happens in the church, etc. But I want to actually concentrate, remember, in terms of hijacking the vocabulary of, or the concept of, I want to concentrate today on hope. Now, this Paul of Tarsus, Corinthians, and he says three are the most important things: hope, charity, faith. What about hope? Well, hope is one of the two greatest engines of human actions. If you give people hope, they will do anything to fulfill their hope. The other one, of course, is interest. However, if you were to compare, not for today, but if you were to compare how far you can push someone in terms of self-interest and how far you can push that someone in terms of hope, hope trumps interest, to the point that someone would actually commit suicide in order to fulfill whatever insane hope, that suicide, bombing someone, etc., or crucifying someone else, etc. We all have plenty of examples for millennia. The pursuit of their hope will go beyond any possible human interest. So I will not talk about interest today, but remember, this is an airplane with two engines. And by far, our society is taking advantage of one engine, the interest engine. Economic discourses has appropriated the analysis of interest, has been doing that for a long time, at least since the 19th century. Now, if you talk about interest today, is a particular rational setting that economic sort of analysis will make sense of. And technology, being the last development of our economic upbringing, as it were, today, is finally getting there. So the two engines, interest, first appropriated by the economic discourse, and more recently appropriated by the technological discourse. This is not a topic for today. Okay, so that's one engine. For another time, another day. But don't forget, because there's an airplane here, I want to talk about the other engine, the engine of hope. Well, religious discourse has appropriated the analysis of hope for millennia. Now, appropriate doesn't mean anything negative. It's just that when you start talking about hope, interest normally ends up with a bunch of economists in the room. Hope, more likely that religious people will be involved, or ethicists. Well, since the 19th century, this is not me, I mean, it's well-known stuff, but sociology and political theory has been appropriating the religious vocabulary to make sense of a more secular society, including that of hope. The argument that I want to develop today, and then, as I said, wait for the good news at the end, is that as a second step, technology discourse has been appropriating the political analysis of hope. So two engines, forget about one, the other, hope, first hope as a religious discourse, then increasingly since the 19th century as a socio-political discourse. You just have to read Marx, okay, to understand what I'm talking about. And later on today, as you really need this new iPhone, okay? Because such a big screen, never before. And guess, it's the ultimate, best, unimaginable iPhone you will ever enjoy until next time, of course, when there will be another one. But we'll let you wait for about 12, 18 months. Oh, by the way, you just have to check online. There's plenty of graphs where our Apple delivers iPhones, not a moment miss in that chronology, like tick-tack, boom, tick-tack, boom. It doesn't happen accidentally, okay? So it's just enough time for us to forget that last time we were promised the best of the best, and there's another one which is better than the best of the best, and then another one. It normally, given human attention, it takes us, humanity, about 12 and 18 months to forget that the one we bought was the best of the best, and now we want to have a better one. And that's what Apple does. But that's for another day. As I said, not for the technology conference, not today. So today is about hope. And first of all, to understand what hope, how it works, we need to understand what it is. And so that is going to be a bit of philosophical analysis. Then how technology has appropriated the religious analysis of hope. In other words, how we've been secularizing hope in a way that is not just political, but is actually techno-something. And how we can reappropriate hope in a sort of more spiritual way. That's the map for the next half an hour. So what is hope? Well, luckily for once, we're all pretty much on the same page. It doesn't happen often with philosophers. Philosophers in the room know that. Now, hardly ever do we agree on something, but more or less, all the big guys, Aristotle, Augustine, Aquinas, Hobbes, Hume. If you disagree, you are in bad shape, okay? No. So this is the other team. You're not going to win. Any reference to Monty Python in Cambridge is voluntary. Okay? So classic analysis of hope says that hope has two components. Hope has a desire component and a belief component. And if that little formula there is scary, it shouldn't be. It's just a shorthand which says A, the little thing next to the H, say Alice, H, hopes that P, she wins the lottery. If and only if Alice, the small a, desires to win the lottery, and Alice, capital B, believes that there's a chance, P probability, more on that probability than you want to know in a little while, that she wins the lottery. So that thing really reads, if Alice hopes that she wins the lottery, well, that is the case if and only if, one, she really likes to, wants to, desires to win the lottery, and she believes she has a chance. Now, it's important to understand this chance idea. So the P. I know people, unfortunately, and don't blame me for that, who hope things that are impossible. Well, that's called irrationality. Okay? Oh, I wish I were a different person. Irrelevant. You know? You can't be a different person. You cannot hope that you are a completely different person. Oh, I hope that I wasn't born in 1964. Well, apart from being bad English, it's also bad rationality. So you cannot hope something that is not the case factually. It has to have a bit of a chance of being even slightly possible. So P there, the P star, means uncertainty. At least subjectively, and for anyone Bayesian here, well, that's the reference, at least subjectively, I need to think that there is a chance that that might happen. I did not buy the lottery ticket. I didn't. I know that I didn't. And I hope that I win the lottery. There's something wrong with your brain, okay? So if I hope that I win the lottery, I must have bought the ticket in the first place. It happens also to PhD students when it comes to the, I hope that I can submit the thesis. Have you written the thesis? No. That is going to be a problem. So any probability here means anything between 0 and 1. Now, for the non-probabilistic people here, it means that it is not utterly a matter of fact. You don't hope that you're born in 1964, because I was born in it. So I don't have to hope for that. And I cannot hope that I wasn't, because I was. So anything between the impossible and the utterly matter of fact does not belong to hope. It's anything in between. That should be clear. So one hopes that P, one believes that it is possible that desired state P obtains. Fine. Even Paul of Tarsus knew that. Here is Romans 8:24. For in this hope we were saved. Okay, fine. But hope that is seen is not hope at all. Suppose that, I hope that someone will bring me a glass of water. And then you say, there's a glass of water here. I hope that there's a glass of water here. That's not going to work. You can't hope for things that are actually a matter of fact. If you know that. If you have already won the lottery, you can stop hoping because you did, including the PhD thesis. So who hopes for what they already have? No, the irrational people. Now, there's much more work that can be done here. And this is the moment when you can close your eyes if you don't like mathematical logic. But let me just highlight a couple of things because they are quite simple. Now, look at the second line, blue line. If Alice hoped that P, then Alice does not hope that not P. Well, that is what also rationality looks like. If she hopes that she wins the lottery, surely, hopefully, that means that she does not hope that she does not. Fine. We'll get to something more substantive in a moment, but I'd like to show you the red line. The red line, anything else is a bit less important for us. It says that if Alice hopes that P, that she wins the lottery, then she wins the lottery. Well, that is called magic, okay? So there are plenty of Harry Potter around where if you hope that your enemy will die, boom, bam, dead. So it doesn't happen in real life. However, that axiom, for example, is completely fine in another context called epistemic logic, where the H is read in terms of Alice knows that P. She knows. She knows that water is H2O. And guess what? If she knows that P, it is that P. Oh, but no, she knows so many things that she does, they're not true. Well, then she doesn't know them. She thinks she knows them, okay? But look at that thing again, and think in terms of belief. Alice believes that she has won the lottery. Has she won the lottery? Well, we don't know. Certainly not as an implication. It is not true that if I believe something, that something is the case. Now, this is important because some people, not in this room, of course, have a confusion about hope and belief. They think that hope and belief are the same thing. I just show you that they're not. And just to be more clear, Alice hoping that P is very different from Alice believing that P, because, for example, she can believe that P and yet not hope that P. Everyone not writing, I'm afraid that, my dear candidate, your application, etc., etc. Well, I believe something, but it doesn't imply that I hope that something is the case. or the other way around. Suppose that I hope something, that doesn't mean that I necessarily also believe there's something. That is, in English, called hope against hope. No? If you hope against hope that something is the case, I can't come back to you and say, oh, you believe therefore that you are going to win the lottery? No, I don't think so. So you hope, but you don't believe that. Yeah, I still hope, but there's a chance in hell, but I don't believe it really. So I'm just trying to see, fun and other things. So it makes perfect sense to have hope that P without believing that P. So hope and belief, don't get confused. They work separately. But how, now that we know a little bit about the mechanism, we are ready to play with this particular game, how has technology appropriated the religious analysis of hope? And remember, by technology here, I should have said this at the beginning, but the main one that is today playing the hope game in this digital technology is the topic of the conference, AI. It's AI that at the moment is really riding with this technological or techno-hope, especially if you are in California, in Silicon Valley. Well, remember what I said about that definition, that hope is two things, is something you desire and something you believe might be the case. If you want to manipulate something, and that something comes in two components, well, you manipulate this if you manipulate the two components. That's simple, right? So, in this case, the manipulation here is a twofold strategy. It's a manipulation of desire and a manipulation of belief. In other words, our techno-discourse has been increasing the desire that that is the case, and is also increasing the belief in the probability that that is going to happen. The way in which you will be happy with the new iPhone is unbelievable. Desire and belief. I increase your desire for that particular technology, and at the same time, I increase your belief in the fact that that technology will actually deliver whatever goods that technology is supposed to deliver. More efficiency, faster, more productivity, more something. So the promotion or advertisement of the particular possession and use of a technology called that T manipulates in the DB way, now you know what I'm talking about, in the desire, belief sort of sense, Alice. So my advertising the iPhone, poor guys today, I know it's just been promoted, so it's the topic for the week. My advertisement of the iPhone is actually manipulating my customers, both in terms of what they desire and in terms of what they believe, so that I can manipulate them. Of course, what happens with techno hope? That you actually buy the iPhone. You possess the thing. And remember what I said at the beginning, you cannot hope something that is the case. You just won the lottery, so you don't have to hope anymore. So what I need to do is to wait a little while and then reignite the desire and the belief in the next item. So that's what that sentence says. The actual possession of T, whatever technology here we have, the AI included, maximizes the probability of that P. In other words, it makes it a fact. It's no longer probable that something will be the case. It is the case. I have it on my desk. Making the hope that P, oh, I wish I had that iPhone so much, is equal to the experience. Oh, I have it. I'm using it. It's great. It's in my pocket. So we need a new P, the last sentence. Call it Q, which can be the subject of a new hope. So techno-hope never leads to closure. It has to be always renewable. That's why techno-hope cannot be but consumeristic. It has to be. But by its own definition, not in any sort of deterministic way, by logic, it has to promise something, deliver something, and then immediately in a sort of Hegelian way, destroy their hope to renew the hope in something else that will come in 18 months. So that mechanism we need to have clear in mind, because it's part of the game. So the promoted or advertised technology becomes a talisman. I like to call it that way. It's a bit of a strong word, but since we are here. So a technology of hope. People will do anything, will queue, will sleep hard, at night, outside their shop to get that particular object, possibly in gold color. So ICTs in general, but AI in particular today, with their boundless promises of power, are the most powerful talismanic technology ever devised. It's almost, pushing my luck a little bit, almost like a drug. We are addicted to this techno-hope. And that addiction comes with an impoverishment of other forms of hope. So insofar as the talismanic ICTs are appropriating the narrative of hope, they crowd out the corresponding religious narrative of hope. I might actually hope more for the next whatever, maybe iPad, let's say, than for something that is not even of this world. So there's an eschatological vision here, namely a discourse on the ultimate nature of things, which moves from being religious to being techno-utopian. And the utopian narrative is mostly commercial. I hope I'm not jumping too many steps and no one gets lost. I'll show you a picture in a moment, next slide. But trust me when I say that, I hope, or Google it otherwise, that today there is no utopian discourse worth engaging with. There's plenty of dystopian discourse. But the utopian discourse, namely how humanity imagines whatever wonderful world we could hope for, is not happening unless you're looking at something like this. The only context I know where there's utopian, they don't know, they don't call it that way. I mean, but the utopian discourse today is entirely technological. It was also a little bit in the past, but I'm talking about hope here. So there's got nothing to do with spirituality or non-secular, transcendent motives at all, and it's all about the next step in technology will bring about paradise on earth. And so if you want to have an understanding of what humanity in these gloomy days of Trump and Brexit is thinking about hope, is technology. And that's where they can be a little bit free of some kind of ideas that can go somewhere. So from politics to economics to technology of interest, I told you that's one engine, we leave that aside. But from religion to technology of hope, that's the engine I've been talking about. And in the end, the two come together. So it is not accidental that we have, at the same time, the technological discourse being both about interest and hope in a single airplane, who is not being driven or being directed anymore by anything else than the technological discourse, which is quite disconcerting. So if this is the situation, and I'm happy to have a debate, maybe I'm not entirely right, God forbid, but suppose for a moment, just hold that thought, and you don't have to agree, but I would say let's assume for a moment that this is the case. If this is the case, then how do we reappropriate the discourse about hope? Well, that's where things can start getting a little bit less depressing. So first of all, the talismanic view of ICTs in general, and I was just a couple of days ago, I was in Basel in Switzerland, where there was the annual big meeting on AI and medicine, and you should have seen the presentations. The hope there that AI in the medical care, etc., will bring the ultimate solution is staggering, and is, in a way, a good reminder of the power of hope. So there's a bright light, so to speak, there. However, the talismanic ICTs are not worth our hope. Or how do you decide about that? Well, there's one way of talking about whether it's worth hoping something. Is there something? So if my greatest hope in life is to have a new pair of shoes, well, you may not be impressed. Compared to my greatest hope that I have a fulfilling job. Well, that's already a little bit of a better sort of hope. Or suppose that I start escalating to, well, forget about shoes and jobs. I really want to have a good life. I want to be a human being with a meaningful life. Well, that's escalating. So the value of hope, I hope you agree with me, is not intrinsic in the hoping. There's nothing worth in just hoping something, but it's in the object. It's almost like saying there's nothing of value in the money itself. It's what you buy with the money that makes a difference to not the value of the money. It's a means to an end. But if you agree with me, and I'm going to stress this because you're buying a lot with this, because then if the value of hope is given by the object that is the reference of hope, then what is the highest possible entity? And you know, given the context where I'm going with this, that you can hope about? Well, certainly, it must be the existence of God. It doesn't get any better than that. So the object with the highest value of hope is the existence of the divine. Now, trust me when I say I used to be a Catholic. I'm not. I'm an agnostic. And now, for any person who is a believer here, you have no idea what it means to lose faith. Trust me, you have no idea. It's the worst loss in your life, because you know what the world looked like before. And all of a sudden, someone is turning off the light. It's horrible, okay? Having said that, I hope you will also get from this perspective that I don't have an agenda here. It's not like, oh, the guy from Rome clearly sooner or later, is going to go down that road. Nope. If I go down the road, it's because I cannot avoid going down that road. I will be going down that road despite my desire not to, because I follow logic where it leads. And that's my only rule. So here, either we can replace our techno-optimism and techno-hope with something worth our while, or if that is not possible, well, that's the best we can do. Remember that picture I showed you? That is the only paradise we're going to get, okay? Which is fine. I mean, that might be a risk. As an agnostic, I can live with that, or I have to live with that. But that seems to me the alternative. Now, remember when I said that P is going to do a lot of work? Well, we need to work on that. So recall the classic analysis. Alice hopes that P, if and only if, definition, she desires that P, and she believes that P has a chance of being the case, has a chance. So that P really calls for uncertainty analysis. I won't bother you about this, but uncertainty, identify that as a question to which you don't have an answer, or you have too many answers and you don't know which one is right. So either you don't have an answer to your question, or your question gets so many answers you don't know which one is right. That's your uncertainty. And that uncertainty is any probability between 0 and 1, anything in between. And if you want to be precise, it could be any real number between 0 and 1. Or if you want to be more simplistic, rational will do. Or just 1, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, just a little bit more than just 0 and 1 and either or. Probability doesn't come just as yes, no. It comes into chunks. So if one hopes that P, one believes that it is possible, the desired state P obtains. That is uncontroversial. Okay, so if one hopes that P, one believes that it is possible that the desired state of P obtains, what about a state? And it's a classic, so if you haven't encountered before, shame on you. I mean, it's God as the being having all perfections. And I even put the Latin there, just to show you that it's old stuff. No, it comes from the argument for the existence of God. If you think of something that is the biggest of all possible things, etc., we won't go down that road. But he has a link there for another day. Now, what happens here? And bear with me, because we're almost home. Well, if you think about the existence of God, at least we can agree on one thing. We don't have to believe or not believe, but we can agree on one logical step for everybody. If God exists necessarily, not by chance. It's not like me. I do exist, but I exist accidentally. If my parents hadn't met at their party, and don't even make me think about it, my dad was wearing the wrong clothes. My mom thought he was a waitress, and she went to ask me for a drink. My dad didn't believe his luck, and I'm here. So that's the way you exist, okay? Accidentally, truly accidentally. We still have that black tie in the house. So accidentally, that's the existence you have, but that's not God. God doesn't exist accidentally. If God exists necessarily. In the vocabulary of modern logic, it exists in all possible worlds. There is no possible world in which God doesn't exist because, no, mom and dad didn't meet. However, the counterpoint is that if it does not exist necessarily as well, as in the square triangle. It's not like, oh, it doesn't exist, but if only. No, no, it cannot exist. So God is either on one side or the other side of the necessary existence. Either it does exist necessarily everywhere, at any time, or possible, etc., or never, is meaningless. Okay? So we don't have to decide which way we want to go, but this much, on this, we all have to agree. We have that point since Leibniz. So progress in philosophy takes kind of millennia, but we're getting there. So because either God exists necessarily, or if it does not exist, it does not exist necessarily. In other words, God's existence is not like mine, and his non-existence is not like, say, my third brother, who didn't exist accidentally. Well, maybe my parents could have had a third brother, a third kid. God's non-existence is more like bachelors that are happily married. They don't exist in a sort of meaningful sense of impossibility. So we need to revise the classic analysis. We just improve it. Now, as I said, we're not going to play against that kind of team, but we need to improve it. The probability here is not just 0 and 1, it's anything in between. So if there is no room between 0 and 1, as the classic analysis normally assumes, which is a bit silly, then you would have to be forced to hope for something that is either impossible or totally possible. But remember what I said, if winning the lottery is impossible because you didn't buy the ticket, it's irrational to hope that you will win the lottery. And if you have already won the lottery, namely it's a fact, it is irrational to hope that you will win. So here, can we rationally hope that God exists? In the same sense, is there space between, can I hope that I win the lottery? Because if I have already won it, I'm out. And if I didn't buy the ticket, I'm out. But if there's space in between, then that becomes interesting. And that is the reasonableness of hope. There is space in between. And trust me, I'm an agnostic. In other words, I don't have an answer to that question. But if I don't have an answer to that question, that means that I have doubts. I can go maybe. The maybe is mine is not maybe God. Remember, God doesn't exist maybe. It's maybe God exists. But no, God maybe exists. I hope that doesn't confuse you. No? But remember, no, if he doesn't exist, never, nowhere. And if he does, always, everywhere. Nothing in between. What is in between is my intelligence, my ability to understand. Not knowing whether, for example, something in the other room is there or not. Is there a cat in the other room or not? Suppose that either there is or there isn't. There is nothing in between. I don't know. But I might hope that there is one if I like cats. And that would be reasonable. Unless someone tells me that, no, cats are impossible, so you can't hope for a cat to be there. But that's why I'm not an atheist. Because the atheist believes that God is like the biggest of all natural numbers. Doesn't exist. Plus one, plus one, plus one. And so if you're stuck in the middle, well, you're stuck in a good place. The reasonableness of hope is where you are. So if A hopes that married bachelors exist, then A is irrational. Same for Santa Claus. But if A hopes that God as the being having all perfection exists, that's perfectly fine. That road is totally open to rational discourse. So we're coming to the end. The object with the highest value of hope is the existence of the divine. Can hope for the existence of the divine be rational? Yes. And so what consequences can we derive from this? Well, now it's time to go back to the Techno-Hope, AI, digital technology, etc. Well, first of all, talismanic ICTs become a modern form of idolatry. They become a wrong way of making sure that your uncertainty is grounded in something that is not worth your hope. We're better than that. We can hope for more, for something higher than the next iPhone, no matter what they say, no matter what they are trying to sell us. And if that is, I hope, convincing, then we really need to change course. In other words, we can reintroduce a topic or a subject for the highest possible hope, which is not just about techno-optimism. And so we can regain hope, meaning that we can have hope in the existence of God. Now, there is a lot to be said here I won't even touch upon this with a long stick. So there's time for some Q&A. But let me draw a couple of conclusions here so that you know that at least I'm aware of what bomb is exploding under our feet here, semantically speaking. Well, first of all, something that I will not even try to explore remotely with us now, if we can regain some sort of a spiritual hope as opposed to techno-hope, to simplify, well, then there's room for a lot of dialogue between different people, different cultures. Because on hope, well, there's much more to be said than on faith. Faith is a bit more dramatic. My faith and your faith may not go hand in hand. But my hope and your hope, they can be better friends. It's easier. So, in a different context, trust me, I'm aware of the gazillion volumes that could be written on this. So, shame on me for not refraining from saying it, but we could move from a theology of faith to a theology of hope. Remember how I started? Paul, 3 of the most important things, and faith was one of them. Well, we've been discussing faith since then as the real thing, the va-va-voom kind of thing on the 3. Well, maybe more humbly, more sort of more cosmopolitan, tolerant way, if we could switch to hope. See, hopes are compatible. My hope and your hope can actually go hand in hand more easily. And so hoping that God exists might actually bring people like me, the agnostic, on board. Because the agnostic, like me, doesn't have faith that God exists, doesn't believe that God exists. But if he's sufficiently, or she is sufficiently reasonable, should hope that God exists. Because it would be a better world. Clearly. I mean, who can deny that? Now, you don't know that that is the case. But can't you hope that that might be the case? Oh, of course. So that road is open. And the last thing, a few questions, since we are in question time now. Do we have an epistemic duty to be rational in our hopes? Yes, absolutely. Remember, if I have won the lottery ticket, it would be irrational to hope that I won. I have. Here's the money. Oh, boom. So stop hoping and move on. So I can't believe my luck. Okay, believe. But don't hope, please. Or, if you didn't buy the ticket, please don't be irrational and hope that you win the lottery anyway. But we can be rational in our hopes. But do we have an epistemic or moral duty to have hopes? Well, this might seem a little bit of a game for philosophers, but if you think of it, does our culture demand that we start developing good hopes, different hopes? Now, I'm talking here almost in a political sense, and in an even broader sense than I've already been talking. If you get out of the Techno-Hope and the AI within the Techno-Hope, but you look at society at large, what kind of hopes do we have today for the future that are not linked to technology or money or interest and that sort? Is politics actually giving us hopes for a better society, or is simply working on legacy from the past? Whether it's a legacy from Victorian times, Brexit, or legacy from some 19th century time, the Labour Party. One way or another, there's a lack of project, and there's a lot of missing out of how wonderful the world was when we were elsewhere. Now, that's why we need to have a sense of whether having hope is a duty. And can we reconcile our hopes and our interest? Now, I didn't touch upon this. I assumed since the beginning, by giving you the analogy of the 2 engines in an airplane, that of course they work together. They move us through history as a single engine. Well, that's a rhetorical move. You might actually buy it, but no. As soon as you make you aware of the trick, you say, oh yeah, well maybe those 2 engines are pulling different directions. Maybe they're not compatible. Maybe we need to overcome some interest through hope, and vice versa. That is a question that I haven't addressed today. And these are topics really for another time. But thank you so much for listening, and hope there are some questions. Thank you.
Cambridge Muslim College, training the next generation of Muslim thinkers.